The call came at 11:47 p.m. I know the exact time because I checked my phone when I saw Catherine's name. 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. The worst time to receive the worst news. "She's gone," Catherine said. For words. That's all it took to destroy everything. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there in my dark apartment in London, listening to my half-sister breathe on the other end of the line, and I knew that something was terribly wrong. Not with the fact that our mother was dead. I'd been expecting that for months. The cancer had been relentless, and by the end, she was barely conscious half the time.
No.
Something was wrong with Catherine's tone. She was trying to sound sad. But underneath the sadness, there was something else. Something like victory. "Rebecca," Catherine said when I didn't respond. "Are you there?" "How long?" I asked. "This morning. The nurse found her. They said her heart just stopped. It was quick, at least. Peaceful." The way she said peaceful made my stomach turn. Like she'd rehearsed it. Like she'd practiced this exact conversation 100 times. "Why are you calling me at midnight?" I asked. There was a pause. A long one. Then, "Because I wanted you to hear it from me." Another pause. "And because I wanted you to know about the will before the solicitor calls you tomorrow." I felt something inside me tighten. What about the will? Catherine took a breath. And when she spoke again, all pretense of sadness evaporated. "Mom changed it, Rebecca. 6 weeks ago. She left me the house. The estate in the Cotswolds. Both Range Rovers. The Mercedes. The investment portfolio. Everything worth having, really." The silence stretched between us like a living thing. "And me?" I asked. But I already knew the answer. "You get the house in Cornwall," Catherine said. "The one you've never even visited. It's worth about 300,000. And Mom's jewelry box." I heard her smile in the darkness. "Plus a letter," she added. "But honestly, I have a feeling you won't like what it says." I hung up. The morning after. I didn't sleep. I sat in my apartment and watched London wake up outside my window. The sun came up the same as it always did. Traffic moved the same. People went to work the same. But everything had changed. Everything. I'd sacrificed 38 years for this. 38 years of working 70-hour weeks. 38 years of missing my daughter's school plays for board meetings. 38 years of promises from my mother that the business would be mine, that all of my sacrifice would mean something, that I would be the one to inherit the empire we'd built together. 38 years. And Catherine, lazy, irresponsible, selfish Catherine, had convinced our mother to give her everything in the last 6 weeks of her life. How was that possible? I called the solicitor's office at 8 a.m. "I need to see the will," I said. "The original document. Not a copy. The original." "Ms. Rebecca," Mr. Pemberton said carefully, "I understand you're grieving, but these things are typically handled." "I don't care what's typical," I interrupted. "I want to see the original will. Today." There was a long silence. "I'll check with Catherine," he finally said. "Why would you need to check with Catherine?" Another silence. The kind of silence that means everything. "I'll schedule an appointment," he said. "Thursday. 2 p.m. Don't be late." The lawyer's office. I paid for a forensic document examiner before I went to see the solicitor. I knew something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. Catherine's confidence on the phone had been too absolute. She'd known that I couldn't fight her. She'd known that by the time I discovered what had happened, it would be too late to do anything about it. Unless she was hiding something. The document examiner was a woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, who specialized in forgery detection. She'd worked on fraud cases for the Metropolitan Police for 15 years. When I showed her photos of Catherine's Instagram posts, pictures of her at the Cotswolds estate, pictures of her in the Mercedes, pictures of her suddenly living a life she'd never been able to afford, Dr. Chen raised an eyebrow. "These are dated?"
Dr. Chen asked.
3 weeks before our mother died, I said. "And your mother died. When exactly?" 2 days ago. Dr. Chen looked at the photos. Then at me. "That's interesting," she said. She's acting like she already owns the estate before your mother is even dead. That's what I thought, I said. Bring me the will, Dr. Chen said. The original. And any other documents your mother signed recently. Medical forms. Letters. Anything. The truth. Mr. Pemberton's office was exactly what I expected. Mahogany, leather, the smell of old money and older secrets. The will was spread out on his desk. I read it while he watched me read it. It was dated 6 weeks ago. Signed by our mother. Witnessed by two people I'd never heard of. It left everything to Catherine. Everything. The house. The estate. The investment portfolio worth £4 million. Both Range Rovers. The Mercedes. Everything. And what was left for me was a single paragraph in the remainder of estate section. To my daughter Rebecca, I leave the house in Cornwall that I purchased in 1993, which is currently valued at approximately £350,000. I also leave to her my personal jewelry box and the following letter. A house I'd never seen. A jewelry box full of costume jewelry from the 1970s.
And a letter.
I'd like to keep the will, I said. That's not standard procedure, Mr. Pemberton said. I don't care. I'm keeping it. I took the will and the letter and left. I opened the letter in my car outside the solicitor's office. Rebecca, I'm leaving the estate to Catherine because she needs protection. You don't. You've always been strong. You've always survived on your own. I need to make sure she survives too. You have the cottage. It's yours to do with as you please. I'm sorry I can't give you more, but I'm giving you what I can.
Love, Mom.
7 sentences. That's all it took to destroy everything I'd built toward. 7 sentences from a dying woman who I'd visited every other day for 6 months. 7 sentences from a woman who I'd held as she cried about her mortality. 7 sentences from a woman who'd promised me, year after year, that the business would be mine. 7 sentences from a woman I'd been an idiot to trust. I drove to Dr. Chen's office and handed her the will. The discovery. Dr. Chen examined the will for 3 hours. She used ultraviolet light. She examined the paper weight. She looked at the ink consistency. She compared the signature to samples of our mother's known writing. This is not your mother's signature, Dr. Chen finally said. The words hung in the air between us. You're certain? I asked. Absolutely certain. Look here. She pointed to the signature on the will, then to a sample of our mother's writing from a birthday card dated 1 month before the will was created. Your mother had developed tremors in her hands during her illness. Every signature she made in the last month of her life shows those tremors. Slight variations in pressure. Minor irregularities. She pointed back to the will. This signature has no tremors. This is someone who traced over your mother's signature or used a high-quality digital reproduction to recreate it. This is not your mother's hand. Can you prove it? I asked. To a forensic standard?
Yes.
In court? That's harder. But I can raise enough reasonable doubt that any jury would demand a full investigation. The private investigator. His name was Tom Oglesby, and he'd worked for the Metropolitan Police for 20 years before going private. I need to know who forged my mother's will, I told him. And I need to know if anyone else was involved. Tom nodded slowly. That's going to take time. And money. I have both. Then give me everything you have on your sister. Every detail. Every pattern. Every relationship. I gave him everything. The investigation. What Tom found was worse than I'd expected. Catherine had visited our mother 17 times in the last 6 weeks. 17 times. Before that, she hadn't spoken to our mother in 3 years. 3 years. She claimed that our mother had reached out to her, and that they'd reconciled. She claimed that they'd spent hours talking about life and legacy and love. But Tom found something else. He found credit card records showing that Catherine had purchased high-end art forgery supplies, tracing paper, specialized inks, digital reproduction equipment, all purchased from a supplier that specialized in document forgery materials. He found that Catherine had a boyfriend, a graphic designer named Marcus who worked for a marketing firm in London. Marcus, who specialized in digital signature reproduction for corporate branding. And he found that both Catherine and Marcus had visited the solicitor's office in the week before the will was filed. Once separately, once together. Your sister didn't change the will alone, Tom told me. She had help. The conversation. I called Catherine from a secure phone. Not to threaten her. Not to warn her. Just to confirm what I already knew. I know what you did, I said when she answered. There was a pause. What are you talking about? She asked. But her voice had changed.
It was smaller now.
The will is a forgery. You had Marcus help you. You traced Mom's signature. You used digital reproduction to make it look authentic. But it's not. I have a forensic document examiner who can prove it. I heard her breathing on the other end of the line. Even if that were true, Catherine finally said, what are you going to do about it? You have no proof. You have theories. I have more than theories, I said. But I didn't tell her what I had. I didn't tell her about Tom's investigation. I didn't tell her that I had credit card records and visitor logs and email communications between her and Marcus discussing the signature issue. I just let her sit with the fear for a moment. I'm going to destroy you, I said quietly. Catherine laughed. It was a sharp, cruel sound. How? She asked. You're going to cry to the police? I have lawyers, Rebecca. I have money. I have the will. And you have what? Conspiracy theories? I have proof, I said. You have nothing, Catherine said. And even if you had something, it doesn't matter. I won. The money is mine. The house is mine. The cars are mine. You get a cottage you've never visited and a jewelry box. That's your inheritance. That's what Mom thought you were worth. I felt something inside me go very, very cold. I'm going to take everything from you, I said. Not because I want the money, but because you're a criminal. And criminals need to face consequences. I hung up. The media. The Telegraph's investigative journalist was named Emma Blackwell, and she had a reputation for taking down white-collar criminals. I gave her everything I had. The forensic document examiner's report, the private investigator's findings, the credit card records, the email communications, the photographs of Catherine at the estate 3 weeks before our mother died. I gave her the recording of my conversation with Catherine. And I gave her something else. Access to our mother's medical records, which showed that she'd been prescribed high-dose morphine in the final weeks of her life. Morphine that would have impaired her judgment. Morphine that would have made her susceptible to manipulation. Emma read through everything in silence. When she was done, she looked up at me. This is a very serious accusation, she said. It's not an accusation, I replied. It's evidence. I need to verify everything independently, Emma said. But if this is what I think it is, this is elder abuse. This is fraud. This is forgery. This is criminal conspiracy. That's why I'm giving it to you, I said. The story. The article ran on a Sunday morning. Front page of the business section. Multimillion-pound inheritance dispute. Forensic experts suggest will may be forged. The piece was devastating. It included side-by-side comparisons of the signature on the will with samples of our mother's known writing. It included Dr. Chen's full analysis of the forgery. It included Tom's investigative findings. It included screenshots of the credit card purchases for forgery supplies. It included photographs of Marcus entering the solicitor's office. It included a transcript of the recording of my conversation with Catherine, where she admitted that the will had been changed and where she expressed confidence that I couldn't prove anything. By Monday morning, the story had been picked up by every major news outlet in the UK. Daughter accuses half-sister of forging mother's will. Inheritance fraud, luxury cars, and multi-million-pound estate at center of family scandal. Graphic designer boyfriend allegedly helped with signature forgery. The investigation. The police investigation moved faster than I expected. They seized Catherine's laptop. They found hundreds of files related to signature reproduction. They found email communications with Marcus discussing the signature issue and timing of the solicitor's visit. They found that Marcus had visited the solicitor's office not once, not twice, but 6 times in the week before the will was filed. And on 4 of those visits, security cameras captured him leaving with documents. They found that Catherine had paid Marcus £75,000 over a 2-week period using bank transfers labeled personal loan. They found everything. The arrest. Catherine was arrested on a Thursday morning. She was charged with forgery, fraud, conspiracy, and elder abuse. Marcus was arrested the same day and charged with conspiracy and forgery. Both of them maintained their innocence. Both of them hired the most expensive lawyers they could find. Both of them claimed that the evidence was circumstantial and that the police were targeting them because of Emma's biased reporting. Neither of them addressed the most damning piece of evidence, the recording of Catherine admitting that the will had been changed. The trial. The trial lasted 4 weeks. The prosecution presented the forensic evidence. Dr. Chen testified about the signature forgery. Tom testified about his investigative findings. I testified about the conversation with Catherine and about her admission that she'd convinced our mother to change the will. The defense tried to argue that the signature was authentic. They brought in their own expert who claimed that the lack of tremors could be explained by our mother having a good day when she signed the will. But the defense expert's credibility was destroyed under cross-examination when the prosecutor pointed out that our mother's medical records showed she'd been prescribed increasingly higher doses of morphine during the exact period when she supposedly had this good day. It took the jury 3 hours to reach a verdict.
Guilty.
On all counts. Catherine was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Marcus was sentenced to 4 years. The aftermath. But here's the thing about a conviction for will forgery. The will is declared null and void. And when a will is null and void, the estate is divided according to intestacy laws. 50% to one child, 50% to another. I inherited £5 million. Catherine inherited £5 million. But she had to serve 7 years in prison first. By the time she was released, I'd invested my $5 million and grown it to $32 million. The exile. Catherine tried to rebuild her life after she got out of prison. She tried to start a consulting business. It failed. She tried to do media interviews claiming she'd been wrongly convicted. Nobody believed her. She tried to go back to work as a designer. No firm would hire someone with a conviction for fraud. After 2 years, she moved to Portugal. She got a job as a bartender in Lisbon. She rents a small apartment. She makes minimum wage. She's anonymous in a city where nobody knows her name. She tried to contact me once, 5 years after her release. She sent me a letter asking if we could put this behind us and rebuild our relationship. I burned the letter without responding. The victory. I have £137 million now. I own the Cotswolds estate that Catherine tried to steal. I drive the Mercedes and the Range Rovers that she thought were hers. I control the investment portfolio that she believed would set her up for life. I did everything my mother promised me I would do. I just had to destroy my half-sister to do it. Catherine works as a bartender in Lisbon. She makes about €12,000 a year. She lives in an apartment that costs €800 a month. She's invisible, forgotten, irrelevant. Sometimes I wonder if I should feel guilty about what I did to her. But then I remember the call at 11:47 p.m. I remember the tone of her voice when she told me I got nothing. I remember the confidence in her laugh when she asked, "Who do you think wins this fight?" And I know that I did exactly what needed to be done. I destroyed the person who tried to destroy me. I took everything from the woman who tried to steal everything from me. I won the fight so completely that my sister had to flee the country just to find peace. That's not a tragedy. That's justice. Epilogue. The final twist. Last month, I received a visitor at my office. It was Marcus, Catherine's former boyfriend, the man who'd helped her forge our mother's will. He'd been released from prison 3 years earlier. He'd spent those years working low-level graphic design jobs under assumed names, desperate to rebuild a career that was permanently destroyed. "I want to help you," he said. "Help me with what?" I asked. "There are others," he said. "Other families where wills have been forged. Other cases where I helped create fraudulent documents. I've kept records. I have files. I have everything. Why would you give that to me?
I asked.
Because Catherine destroyed my life, he said. Because she convinced me that what we were doing was ethical. Because she claimed that your mother wanted this. Because she lied to me. He slid a folder across my desk. There are 18 cases in here, he said. 18 families who don't know that their wills were forged by the same process that Catherine and I used. 18 people who've lost their inheritances to siblings and partners who paid for forgeries. I opened the folder and looked at the evidence inside. 18 cases. 18 families. 18 opportunities to destroy other criminals like Catherine. I looked at Marcus. What do you want? I asked. I want immunity, he said. I want protection. And I want to help you take down every person who's ever forged a document the way I did. I thought about it for exactly 5 seconds. Then I picked up my phone and called Emma Blackwell at the Telegraph. I have a story for you, I said. What kind of story? She asked. The kind that will take down a criminal network that's been forging wills for 5 years. Send me everything, Emma said. And that's exactly what I did.